Welcome back to the Remotely Speaking Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Hawk, today. I'm so glad you're here. Got an amazing guest today. His name is Ryan Gelbrich, good friend of mine. Ryan has been an insurance agent since 2016, and he was a team member and intern before that since 2008. So he's been in the insurance world for a long time. He opened up a second office in 2023. He's got a number of accolades and awards within his industry. And recently, he's been an early moderator of Agent Circle and co-founder of Agency Network since 2018, which we'll talk about today. Ryan's an awesome dude, some awesome things to talk about today, and we're going to jump into it. Ryan, welcome, man. Thank you for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
For the listeners out there, like Ryan and I, there's a good chance we're going to go on tangents all over the place. So just forewarning for our listeners, like who knows what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be awesome. I know that. Last time I talked with Ryan, we talked about nothing for like 35 minutes. So, so today we're going to focus on a few topics. Ryan, I wanted to talk with you, man, about the role of remote workers in your business. Like we're in the same sphere and our entire team is remote and you have in-office team members and you have remote team members. I really want to get your take on what that looks like for you.
Yeah, obviously, COVID changed a lot, right? In terms of how the industry allowed for people in this space to work from home or work from wherever. Yeah, it feels like these days you have to engage there, or you're missing out on a giant segment of the population. And um, certainly, as I've worked with my recruiter over the years. Um, if we limit our recruiting just to our little local area here in Salem, Oregon, the number of candidates and how qualified they are is fairly limited, right? And so with a lot of pressure on training and raising people up from the beginning, which obviously we still have that whole channel. But as my business has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and it necessarily has to be less about me personally serving each individual customer and more about my leadership and how how do I run a team of people who can provide a great experience for my customers in all these ways. Well, the moment that we had the ability to have remote workers, it puts a lot on the table in terms of qualified candidates and being able to hire experts already. And then we can get them in a space that really fits their skill set. So it's created a lot of flexibility for me in terms of my infrastructure on my team.
Dude, that's fantastic. And how have you found that like the remote team you have, how does it best fit with your in-office team? Because you got both,
Yeah.
right? Do you find you do like the blend between the two a certain amount, or when we talk about that?
Yeah. So obviously, I still have to have office coverage. When somebody walks through that door, there's got to be somebody there to greet them. So in my mind, there's this foundational model of I need X number of people in each of my offices to make sure that someone's there to greet them when they walk through the door. But more and more, most business is done over the phone or over Zoom, and so how we've done that is I've kept that infrastructure locally, and in the back of my mind, always there's got to be this baseline staffing. But then everybody on my team has an iPad at their desk, including my remote workers, and we're on Zoom all day long together. Everybody's on mute. They pop off a mute if they have a call for one person. They're able to communicate. We're able to see each other. And so it, I mean, even just with my in-person team between the two offices, it allows us to create one culture. It allows them to interact and be a team, see each other every day. And then there's just some natural accountability to if your camera's off all day or your camera's on and you're not at your desk, um, then there's some natural questions that get asked there. But more than anything, it's a way for them to communicate really well with each other and and really for us to build that culture of one team.
Dude, that's fantastic. Something we talk about frequently on this podcast is culture, right? Like how to manage and lead remote teams because it's different, right? They're not in person, so you don't get the typical cooler talk or how's it going. You don't get that normal FaceTime. And so how do you build a culture with employees that are remote and make them feel integrated?
Yeah.
And I love what you just talked about having Zoom kind of available. So it's almost like they're there essentially,
Yeah.
right? Like being as seen as possible. How have you found that to be? Have you found that to be really effective for both your in-office team and your remote workers? Does like everyone like how that works out?
Yeah, I think it does exactly what you're saying. Like there is a sense of being together. It's not the same. We'll never fully be able to replace working side by side with somebody, having those incidental, water cooler conversations. Um, but it adds a layer of that to make sure that we bring everybody in. And it's just such a cool way. Like we can celebrate out loud. I mean, I work from home a lot of the time. And so even for me to manage remotely, it's a tool for me. But I'll be sitting here working on something, and then all of a sudden the silence breaks and somebody's celebrating something, that happened in my first office. The other person in the first office heard it, saw it, celebrated it. Now the whole team's a part of it. So yeah, it definitely it creates some connectivity on our teams chats. There's kind of another layer there. And then obviously like all of the one-on-one and that sort of thing. Um, we have a group text outside of that. So there's a lot of layers. And now that it's not like I have 15 people in one office and then 3 people all satellite. I've got uh let's see, 3 here in Salem. I've got 3 in Portland, and then I have, I don't know, 4 or 5 remote. And um and it so there's not one group that is like more connected by far than everybody else. They all kind of are relating to each other. So it's a fairly even playing field as far as that goes.
It sounds like you've created like one singular team out of both offices that way.
Yeah, the way that we do it, like I have a my service team services both books. My sales team is focused on their book, but in terms of that culture piece and all the behind the scenes and the training and all of that, yeah, it's one thing. I don't want that team versus this team and a little friendly competition's fine, but like I really want that culture of we're all in this together. We succeed when everybody succeeds.
Yeah. Dude, that's fantastic. So when you made mention of using basically like kind of live Zoom all the time for the remote workers, I never really considered that being something to use with like multiple offices, like in person employees. That's fantastic. It's a great way to build culture. That's what I mean. Realize like a singular culture between the offices, man. That's like really, really, really good. And I imagine it probably saves you a ton of time too, because you as an owner, when I consider like leading and managing teams, you're not having to do it twice, right? You don't have sort of there's this team and there's this team. Yes, they have different functions
Yeah.
and different locations, but it almost sounds like you treat them as here's my team, here's my one team, and you all get to see my face on Zoom all day,
Right.
right?
Yeah, all day they're not split into different meetings. It's one meeting. We're all on camera. People go off camera to go to lunch or go to the bathroom or whatever, but um it's kind of fun because every once in a while like someone's cat like walks across the table or their kids are in the background talking to them and it's a way for us to get to know those employees that aren't in the office every day at a level we don't even always get to know the people who are in office because we don't get that side of it.
That's true.
And it's a really easy way for, if there's a storm and it's icy here, everybody takes their laptop and their iPad home and we're right back to it. It's really easy communication and then we get that side of those people. And it's usually then in situations like that, their kids are coming down the stairs and we always want to say hi on the camera. So every once in a while, like, here comes a elementary schooler and they're waving to the camera. And, it's not everything, but it's a good step towards that
It humanizes it, right? Like
for sure.
I know it's something every single person's guilty of this when you're at work is you forget that everyone has a life,
Right.
right? Like, hey, they're real people outside of the office. And so when you get to see it, I mean, I know it builds relationships with our employees much faster when same thing, like when we're talking to our employees, our daughters will come up and like, I need help with math, right? And so it's like, oh, they're humans.
Yeah.
Right. We all have the same challenges, right? Especially as parents. So that's really cool, man. Don't be surprised if I put that into a future episode of like how to insanely manage remote teams using Zoom. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm a stealer. That is awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you tell me some things that have been challenges for you with remote workers that you've been able to overcome and make awesome?
Yeah. The hard part of one of the hard parts of remote workers is just like they live in their world. And I went to an extreme, I would say, with remote workers where I'm in Oregon. I had a manager in Minnesota. I had multiple team members in California. Um, and that's hard. Like I can't have a dinner one night and bring them in real quick and us all do something together and then send them out to add to that cultural piece we were talking about. Um, and as things come up in their world, like it's just harder to say. Like I don't know all of that. I don't know what it's like to be in Minnesota and all of a sudden it's winter in October,
That's true.
and school getting canceled. And so I fight in my own, you know, in inside of me and my management brain of like, wait a minute, school's canceled. Like, okay, I have to remember that's there. Like it's different, right? It's not what I see out my window. And so that's been a challenge. And I think it's just been a lot of me growing as a leader and what you had said before about remembering that everybody's human,
Yeah.
right? And getting to see that and tapping into that and being understanding. It's always a fine line, whether someone's in person or remote, the balance of grace and accountability, right? And what's culture. And I definitely think that in my leadership that I lean maybe to a fault sometimes on the gracious side of things, right? And so I would say the remote piece of that is hard for me because I can be eternally graceful until the moment where then I'm done. And so I think for me, the leadership growth has had to be learning to be a little less flippant with grace along the way and more intentional and having honest conversations and being vulnerable in that. Like, hey, I understand that all of you've got your life going on and all of this is there. When you just don't show up or you text me, it's sometimes because you're far. It's hard for me to relate to that. So here's what I'm wondering, and I can't see your world the same as everybody else. So fill me in, make me feel better, walk me through that. Get, opening lines of communication early and often. And I think being honest with myself in those places where I'm, not immediately satisfied or I'm having doubts, owning that side of it, even if it's, it might be me being unreasonable.
Right.
And I just have to eat that.
Never.
Never. But opening those lines of communication and creating good dialogue early and often, I think helps lengthen that. And and I'm not good at this. I'm working on being better. We will talk, I'm sure, about some of the ways that agency resource solutions has helped me and sidekicks has helped me automate some things that free me up. Because one of the important things is me having consistent one-on-ones all along the way, performance based, good feedback. Um, if I'm not doing that at a high level, it goes to like it can get sideways for too long, and then I find myself in the place where
Like, yeah, I don't want it anymore.
I'm stuck. Yeah,
Nailed it.
yeah. Having people far away, I think makes that harder. But again, like it puts people in the realm of possibility that never existed before.
100%, man. Like for me with remote workers, they just have to be a bit more intentional, right? It's the same things that you would do with in-person employees. Like you want to have one-on-ones, you want to give feedback. But your personality is going to be the same. Like if you have a gracious personality, you're going to do the same thing in person. It's just with remote work, you don't see them enough. And so it's sort of so I call it fire and forget. Like they're working kind of forget. You just don't see them enough. And so being really intentional with one-on-ones and feedback is huge. Like that's the way to do it on the business side. On the remote employee side, it's something we being Chastity and me, is training remote workers to overly communicate with the people that they're working with, bosses and managers. In particular, if they have issues, right? So for us, like we always have a saying, like, well, we work the standard, not the time. I don't care when it gets done, just get it done, right? I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, within reason, depending on your business. But we're gonna have things. We have kids, we have sick kids, we have a dog, whatever it might be. It's gonna come up. Just get it done. And if you can't, then absolutely need to communicate, here's what's going on, here's what I'm going to accomplish, here's why it hasn't gone. If you do that, I just every reasonable boss, manager, leader is going to be cool with it. So there's onus on both sides, right? Like as managers, we need to be more diligent about having one-on-one and make sure we get the feedback often. And at the same time, like there is an expectation for remote workers, like, hey, like part of the remote gig is you need to communicate more straight up. Like that's what you need to do. And when that happens, then it totally works. Right.
Yeah, I think that like another piece of that is really from on my end, like being super clear upfront about what the expectations are in the job, right? And because yes, I might get somebody who lives in California or Minnesota or North Carolina or wherever that has experience before. What I don't know when I'm bringing them on is what it was like in the world where they had experience, right? And even if that experience is with our my same company, the agency they came from might be, vastly different than mine. So being really clear, I think erring on the side of training, like train well, practice, spot check, getting those role plays so we can hear. That's the other hard part about managing remotely is I don't hear your conversation. And so giving you good feedback and training feedback has to happen in like a role play situation, right? And people love role playing so much that that's an easy thing to defer. So I think the word intentional is good. Like you have to be super intentional. I think with expectations and with training and spot checking that early and often, because if you can get somebody up and running your systems like they would in person, it can be I think it's a really rewarding setup for that team member too, and it does allow a lot of flexibility, but I think to earn the right, like you said, for those, expectations to be clear and met and having a standard, that involves clarity on the front end and really good training consistency there.
Yeah, 100%, man. Totally agree. Totally agree. Uh, so something I found, I want to see if this is similar for you. Again, our entire team is remote, like our internal team. It's 15 of us, completely remote. Actually, between ARS and Sidekicks, there's like 30 plus employees. None of them in the same town. But what we found when we had a hurricane come through South Carolina last fall, it knocked out our power for 10 days straight. And our internet, which is, kind of a requirement when you run a remote business, was out for like 40 plus days. And we quickly realized, hey, man, this would be an absolute disaster, literally and figuratively, if our entire team were here because nobody would be able to work. And as it happened, the team members we had in the South that were kind of taken out by the hurricane for power, and whatnot, we were down and out. But all the other employees that we have that are in the Midwest and particularly Midwest and North, they picked the ball and kept rolling. And so even though we do this for a living, I was almost shocked at like how much of a disaster preparedness plan got enacted. I didn't even make it, but that's what happened. And I was like, oh, dude, this is really interesting. Like, talk about a way to safeguard your business. Like, even having one, like if you have a service person, for example, who's in, I don't know, let's say Kansas, and you guys have a terrible storm go down, you at least have one person who continue to service clients, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we would do with our money, right? When diversity reduces risk.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's great. And same thing here when we've had ice storms come through, my service team hasn't experienced any of that or the remote ones. And so there's this baseline that just gets answered while everybody else is mitigating and figuring out what the next steps are. And same thing, I mean, I get a bite of some of the risk in other places too, right? When the fires were coming through California, one of my remote team members was down for a while and super apologetic, wanted to be back, but it was an opportunity for us to be gracious. And it really had minimal impact on the team because everybody else for a short season was able to just pick up the ball and carry it. So, yeah, I agree with you. Like it definitely evens out that baseline level of service, right? And that's super important for us.
Yeah, it's such a reduction of risk, right? Like we work in the business of risk, and so to me, it's just a reduction. I think there's a full spectrum that you can go too far with it. Like
Yeah.
in our case, when I say every one of our remote employees is remote, some are kind of located in the same region, right? So it's not like I have, 30 people in 30 states. I think that's probably, reducing your risk too much,
Right.
but having some sort of risk reduction is something that now, like I will recommend to every business owner, that can handle remote employees. I'm like, man, you should at least have one, right? Just if nothing else, for that case where you have, complete outage.
Well, we major in the worst case scenario, right? So, for agents that were dealing with LA fires, they had to relocate their whole office and most of their team. If you didn't have anybody remote, I mean, who knows what was happening with phones and all of that. But, if you've got a couple people who are in another spot, they can at least help you create space with the customer, answer that baseline, take care of the quickest need, set a good expectation, but they're able to communicate at least a little bit with the customer. I can only imagine if you're dealing with thousands of people calling your office who all are having an emergency, having having somebody in a different spot is really good because your team is also dealing with that same emergency. I mean, I tell them when I onboard new employees, I tell them like, here's the hard part about coming into this world is we major in the worst case scenario. So while you're experiencing the worst case scenario, that becomes the most important day for us to show up for our customers. And so you're signing up to, I want you to take care of yourself, make sure you're safe, get your family squared away. But then you got to pull that laptop out and get yourself available. By having those remote employees, that even buys my local people more time to deal with that, and really truly make sure that they and their family are safe and taken care of before they have to log back in, right? If we didn't have that, nobody's answering the phone, the agent's anxiety level is going to be a lot higher sooner, and nobody wants that.
No, not at all. Dude, fantastic. We agree. All right. For all those listening, you should have remote employees. So let's continue down that path. So Ryan, I would say in recent history, you have hired an executive assistant through our program, and I wanted to get your take on like what that's done for you as a business owner. And we're gonna dive into the books that we always talk about, which is all related. This is the tangent we're about to go on.
They're all right behind me.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Which I've read. In fact, tangent time, not only I read because you recommended, you're like, "Paul, you need to read these books." I was like, "Okay." And I read them, and I was like, "These were amazing." And then I handed them to my team. I was like, "No, you guys need to read this book," right? And I just had an employee come talk to me. He's like, "Man, this is like changed my life." I was like, "I told you." It's because Ryan told me, and it's the truth. So so let's talk about that, man. Tell me about your executive and how that's changed you and your business, and then we're gonna parlay it into, like how that goes into 10xing versus 2x.
Yeah. So, I mean, to just back up a little bit, like I read the book Who Not How 2 years ago and can't stop thinking about it since. And then continued on with the rest of his books, right? And you reciprocated the recommendation into Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. And I think this thought that as a business owner, I'm being pulled in 30 different directions at once. And there's some great perks to owning a business and certainly an insurance agency and some of the nuances of this industry are there's some great perks. The hard part is you're never really off and there's a thousand things to think about and the expectations um, of our customers, of our company, of our community, of friends and family. Um, it's a lot of different things. This is definitely not the 9 to 5, go home and don't think about it anymore. Um, and it can be very flexible, but as my agency's grown, certainly as we took on a second location in a community 45 minutes away, uh, I mentioned before, it's become more important that I have systems and processes and people in place to deal with most of the day to day and even some of the leadership. And as I look forward at what 10x and maybe not 2x looks like, it's only going to require more.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the executive sidekick position, I mean, even without, sidekick specific program, having somebody to do a lot of that stuff has been something I've been trying. And I was having different people on my team take those things off the plate. But the challenge was most of them are not necessarily skilled at those things. Running my payroll would be an example. Some of the compliance reports would be another example, and being consistent, onboarding, managing me, um, my email, my calendar, my expectations, my inconsistency in communicating, or in communicating, and some of those leadership things. Um, and so as I've automated that within my current team, it's pulled them away from the things that they really are good at. And so it was a conversation with my office manager, who by default is the person, because I trust her so much, she got everything that I didn't want, that I wanted somebody else to do. Like, her job description just kept growing. And most of it was not life giving to her. And I've watched as she's wrestled with, okay, I'll do it. You're my boss. This does need to be done. I agree. She sees the vision at a larger level than most of my team. And by default, she just ended up carrying all of this stuff. And I was watching her burn out and really have to juggle a lot of what we deal with, but she doesn't have the perks of being a business owner. And so it's not worth it to lay that burden at her feet.
Interesting.
And so when I saw the job description of the executive sidekick, it was, a godsend. And Bailey in particular has been phenomenal. Um, and so she manages a lot of stuff. I have a whole list. We're about halfway through all the things she might do. Um, and she's been very gracious uh, in coming back, initiating even with me to revisit that list to say, okay, I've got this stuff down. I'm ready for the next thing. What do we want to do next?
Dude, yeah, fantastic, man. Like, I completely agree. Our executive April is completely transformed our business and personal lives. For all the reasons that Dan Martell puts in his book, "Buy Back Your Time," as well as some of the other books we read, is that when we are able, as business owners, we're able to offload certain tasks that we should not be doing, so we can focus on those that we should. It's absolutely liberating, and you don't know it because, typically, most business owners, in fact, I would say all of us at some point, definitely have the attitude like, "I'm gonna do it because I can do it, and because I'm the one in charge, I need to make sure it gets done, make sure it gets done right, and I don't wanna give it over to anybody. We're too scared of it not being done right." Versus, if I get 80% of the way there, I'm, like, super winning right now versus me having to do it. And what we found with April in particular with, our email and definitely Chastity's email, because her email is crazy, is all of a sudden Chastity had, like, literally 2 or 3 hours extra a day just in her life, and of course, that was massively impactful personally, and then it also allowed us to pick our head up, right? Because when you have all the 1,000 things to do, your head's down. And you, as business owners, we need to look up and forecast, "This is where I need to go," right? It's impossible for us to give the vision to the team if we're doing the day to day. And so that was like the number one impactful thing we found with the executive, and which is why we absolutely love providing great executives to clients because I'm like, dude, of all the things in this world, I can't advocate something more than an executive assistant for a business owner, no matter your business. Like, everybody needs one, and once you have one, even part time, you start to realize like how to spend your time on, money generating things or leadership or vision.
Or your life. I mean, a big part of that Who Not How book, one, and even then in 10X. So I listened to the audiobooks, and the advantage of that was that then Sullivan, after every chapter, they come on and they do a little podcast style, and he comments on the chapter. And he said that he loses more people on the principle of you want what you want than any other principle that he teaches. And the crazy part about that is, like, I relate. There's this sense of guilt we have. We're told that the things we want have to be noble and virtuous, right? And so we feel the need, I feel the need to defend the things that I want or frame them in a light that has to do with something noble. It's got to be service oriented. It can't be about me. Right. And 2 years ago, as I was about to get my second agency, like I had a heart attack. It was one of the most stressful times of my life. And it was a glimpse, right? That I had the thought that night that maybe I saw my kids for the last time. Maybe I saw my wife for the last time. And the thankfully I'm healthy, everything's okay now. But that glimpse was powerful of what are we really doing? What is this for? And so I could build the greatest insurance agency in the world, and I can spend all 60, 70, 80 hours a week stressing out, micromanaging, taking, like you just said, taking on all of these tasks because I think I'm the superhero. I'm the one that has to do them all myself. When the reality is, I'm gifted in certain things, and some of those things aren't life giving. And so more and more in my life, I want to focus on things I'm really good at that give me life. And the rest of it, I want to go find, and this is who, not how, and 10x. 10x is easier than 2x. It, I want to find people who are gifted in those things that it gives them life so that they spend their days doing what they love and getting paid for it. And if we all work together and we are majoring in the things that we're really good at that give us joy, what a life we can live, right? And then we walk into the rest of our world not drained from our work, but energized from our work, and we get to be a blessing to our families, our friends, our communities, our customers in a way that's different. And so reading those books, definitely in the context of a life scare, um, in a season where I was always already dreaming and in a big picture space and taking on the second agency and, very idealistic, it it framed it all so well that if I can find these people, it's a win for everybody, including my customers, including my community and my family. And I shouldn't feel guilty about that 2 to 3 hours, right? That Chastity got back if I use some of that time for my kids.
That's right.
I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. The 17-year-old gets all that's college mail every single day. My 15-year-old just got his permit on Monday. Life's moving fast, and I want to enjoy it with them. I don't want to get to what there will be another moment like that in my life where I'm faced with my mortality. I don't want to look back and go, I spent it all really making sure our billing process was dialed in or micromanaging my team. I want to have good people around me that I trust with our systems. And I want to spend my time in my business making sure that those leaders among us are in agreement about that and they have what they need. So I'm freed up to be the vision carrier and to be the one that points to what's next and to then give my leaders and my highest level employees what they need to be able to give everybody else what they need, both their coworkers and my customers.
Dude, fantastic. A super powerful story, man. I appreciate you sharing that, and I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. We've got 2 kiddos that are about to be 10 and 13, and it's like I opened my eyes and they went from 7 to 13 just like that. And I was like, "Well, I had 5 more years for the old one or the eldest, and then she's out of the house," right? And then it's like a blink.
Yeah.
And as you know, like, if you're a business for those who are business owners that are listening, you know that you look down, it's January, you look back up, it's August, right? It goes that fast. Like, there's so many things to do, and especially if you have kids, like, the activities increase as they get older, right? So life doesn't get less busy. It just gets busier all the way through. And so it resonates a bunch, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Absolutely.
Well, my oldest, like, he just got his license, right? So his senior year, he's technically in the house, but he's working and he's involved in activities and he's now mobile on his own. So how much time I get to spend with him, even in this next year, it's probably not what it has been in the past. And we know what happens in the teenage years, right? They become adults and they start acting like adults. And that's a part of the necessary separation from being super dependent on your parents. Um, but I want to free up to spend the time that I have with them. Nobody gets to the end of their life and looks back and goes, you know what, I spent way too much time with my kids.
That's right. Yeah. I should have done more spreadsheets.
You know, I lost my father before that, and a part of my story is that he worked really hard. He was a workaholic, arguably, until he was 65 years old, and he was going to enjoy his retirement. And 6 months after he retired, he died um, of cancer, and it happened so fast. And it was always this thing where we were believing in him as a family that, yes, someday he would be completely free of work, and then we were going to spend all this time and do all these things. Well, the reality is we're not promised that, and certainly lots of people get that,
Yeah.
but we should never assume that we're in that boat, right? We should spend the time when we have it. And I think as I have bought into the thinking of a lot of these books, finding the right people, getting them in the things that they love and are good at is only going to make all of that better. It's going to free all of us up, including those employees, to do what they are phenomenal at. And that's certainly been true of Bailey and her role as my executive. Is when she talks about it being life giving. She talks about it freeing her up in her life. And the fact that both of those two things can be true at once is eye opening, right? Like sometimes I think we assume like I don't like it, so nobody else likes it. I'm gonna have to pay somebody to just eat crow and deal with that. But the reality that it's not mutually exclusive, like we could both get what we want and everybody wins. That's huge.
It's huge, man. Like, oh, dude, so much to unpack. This is great. I love this podcast. So first off, there's the danger of someday. Someday is very dangerous because someday a lot of times doesn't show up, right? Or the grass is greener. It's not greener. It's just different grass, right? So there's a fallacy there. It's very dangerous for business owners. Like, well, one day I'll do that. One day I'll get this person. Like, nah, man, today's the day. Today's the day. You can't guarantee the next day. Right, and so the life that you wanna make, you need to start doing it now. For, the part you just mentioned, oh, man, yes. Okay, I'm guilty of this as well, right? There's things that I've done before, like, these, let's say, TPS reports, right? Like, oh my gosh, I don't wanna do TPS reports. No one likes it. Turns out there are some people that love it, right? Like, I outsource to, all of our accounting to an accounting team. I do my own forecasting, but they handle it and they love it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Right. And I was like, no one would like this. This is terrible. I mean, correct. They love it. And so they're employed, they're making money, they're living the life they want. And I don't have to do it. Right. And so as business owners, like it is such a noble thing for, let me take a step back. If you frame it correctly, being a business owner and doing the right thing in your business can be super noble because you're giving employment opportunities and life giving opportunities for others. And in the same space, just like Martell was talking about in Buy Back Your Time, is as you find those other areas of the who to do those things, you might be surprised that it's the thing you hate doing, but they love doing, and everybody wins. Right. So that's what we found with our remote workers is like they've gotten to a space, they're doing things that, like, maybe I don't wanna do, but they love it. They're working remotely, they're with their families more, they're making enough money, they're providing service. People like to help other people, like, it's just innate in us. And at the same time, like, I'm providing that person an opportunity, she's winning, you're winning, like, it's great, right? But you're absolutely right, like, the first step as a business owner is get your head out of the space that, 1, you have to do it all, and 2, the bad things everyone would hate, and that's not true.
Yeah, and it's a balance, right? I mean, I've had my team tell me, "We need less of you, not more of you. We like often you're our biggest interruption." And that pendulum can swing too far, right? And I've had it swing too far before where then I'm like, "Okay, awesome. You guys got it all. Like, we'll see you later." But the there is something to that, like when we trust people to do what they're good at, right? It's that back to who not how, when he talks about finding these people who are doing what they're skilled at. Uh, it creates freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of purpose, and freedom of relationship. And that's certainly I'm experiencing in proportional doses as I find these people. It and like I said, it's a two-way street, right? They're also living into their freedom of purpose, right? Like you said, like I don't want to do I'm not good at super detail oriented stuff. I am about on the disc assessment. I'm as far high level thinking as it goes, right? And so I don't do well with the day to day and the micro. But a lot of people do, and my team, like they don't want to think high level. That's why I'm an interruption to them because they don't want to dream. So I find a who can handle me dreaming and help me digest it and then give it to them in a form that they want. It's freedom for them too, right? But also freedom for them in that they get to do what they really are good at. If they are a super detailed thinker, being the one to handle billing when a customer calls in, to handle what happened in a claim when someone calls in, who, goes through somebody's policies and really digs into each line item. They're great at that and they want to do that. They don't want to be sitting in a room with me dreaming about 5 years from now.
Dude, 100%. I'm laughing because everyone in this room was laughing at me because you and I do the same thing. I'm like, we're gonna build spaceships, right? And everyone's like, "What are you talking about? I got building to do." I'm like, "But spaceships, yeah."
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. So let's transition to agency network, man. Why don't you tell me about like how that started, where that's going, and what your intent is to help the world?
Yeah, so I got pulled in early on when it was still Agent Circle, and the original founders of that got to a point where they didn't want to do it anymore, and we're gonna just shut it down. And five of us at that time, there's three of us kind of left running it that uh, wanted to carry on the mantle, and this group has become a community for agents in our company to figure out all the day-to-day stuff and like the challenges of owning a business, the challenges of owning a business with this particular company and the expectations and the compliance issues and all of the things, right? The nuances of owning this kind of business. And so it's been a place where people encourage and problem solve and a little bit of venting. We try as best we can to keep it on a solutions focused bent. That's kind of our thing. Um, you know, the phrase "rainbows and unicorns" has been used about us before, and it's fair. It's by choice because the this is a hard enough gig to like being around a bunch of people who are just venting all the time and talking about how hard everything is and without also talking about what they've attempted or what asking the question or finding the solution. It can be depressing, especially for new agents, and we carry that burden that we want new agents to be encouraged and to really live in, and it's really hard to get it going off the ground, and so we want them to have a place where they come and they get fired up and they go back into their agency and they serve their customers really well and they serve their community and their team really well, and they're able to come on and say, "Hey, who's using agency resource solutions and how are you using them, and what do you do with your executive?" And those conversations are happening, and so it allows people to not have to rely on just their own skill set, their own creativity.
That's right. Yeah.
They get out of their world a little bit, and we don't get together as much as we used to, uh you know these agents. And so um it's created community as our company has gotten further away from the in-person community. It's created an alternative for that.
Dude, that's fantastic. I could see how that would be very beneficial. Like, there's no need to invent the wheel if it's been invented a couple times over. And chances are, especially with having people in your same community doing the same thing you're doing, someone has the answer.
Right.
That's why I've always been such a supporter of you, Ryan, and what you're doing with that is like that is a platform to provide solutions and answers for people. And at the end of the day, every agent is a business owner, and they're also a person, right? And we all, like we started to kind of do full circle. We all have families, we have lives outside of work. We're trying to balance it all. And at the end of the day, every single one of us wants to have a successful business, a successful family, a successful life, and we're trying to balance it all. And so if someone has answers for that to prevent the pain of learning it, I think all the better.
Yeah, there's no reason for us to all have to go through the same pitfalls. If we can learn from each other and kind of crowdsource that knowledge, like that's way better.
Right, that's awesome stuff, man. Can you go ahead and just and tell the world about Agency Network, man? I'll let you do your plug.
Yeah, so we just launched a website. We've had this online community. There've been a lot of things that don't fit really well in that conversation, right? Or they interrupt the conversation we were just talking about that's solutions focused and about business. We really want the community, the Facebook group side of it to stick to that. And so we've launched a website that we're hosting other things, right? So we've got articles. You've got a couple of articles on there that people who have expertise in a certain field are passing on those thoughts so that we can come and we can get better. We've got live calls that we're doing and the recordings are going on there. We've got, I mean, you and I could nerd out on books for a long time. We've got over 100 different books on there that agents talk about on the page, just as a resource for people who want to know what to read next. We've got agency vacation rentals. So agents love to rent uh, each other's short-term rentals. And so we've got a place that all of that gets listed. We've got a health pass, which is, it's not health insurance, but it's like health insurance and it's often way more affordable. And because of the size of our group, they've kind of given us some perks to pass on to everybody for that. So I'm missing a couple things, but it's becoming a resource center where we're able to house a bunch of stuff. So we just launched it. It's agcynetwork.com. You've got to be an agent to get in there and use your company email. But it's worth people checking out. We're really excited about where that's going.
Dude, I'm excited for you, man. I want to see that thing grow and grow and grow. So, congratulations for launching the website. I know that was an endeavor.
Yeah, it's been some work, but it's worth it.
That's always worth it. Hey, man. So, before we wrap up, can you give our listeners, in particular the business owners, some last or some final thoughts and guidance before we close?
I mean, just to stay on kind of theme, I think the more that you can explore finding great people who are gifted in areas that you aren't, to free you up to do the things that you're great at that give you life, that is a worthwhile pursuit. It's worth changing directions, even if it's not what you're doing today. Highly recommend just really taking an inventory of what you're great at and what you love and start plugging in and finding people that take off your plate either the things that you're not great at and also the things that you don't love doing.
Awesome advice, man. Ryan, appreciate you joining the podcast today, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube channel or listen to us on Amazon, Apple, or Spotify. We'll see you next time.